The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on June 17th, 2025.
All right, it's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now here's your host, Pam Toompop. Hello, Pam.
Hey, aloha, Gary. How are you this morning?
Very good, very good. A little stressful beginning here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to say it's a Monday, but actually it's a Tuesday.
Yes.
But yes, it's been kind of a wild morning, and I am back from traveling to New York, D.C., South Carolina to see my brother and his triplets who just graduated from high school. We thought, boy, we'd better see them now before they go off to college, and we might not see them for years. So just got back last night and so excited to be here on the show this morning.
Monthly
with you.
possibly lower our interest rate on the debt.
Are you there?
Gary, I'm getting some odd feedback.
Yeah, no, I'm having some trouble with my computer here.
Okay.
But keep going.
Oh, I was just saying I'm great to be back, but I was monitoring the wildfires. I was getting all the MEMA alerts the last few days, watching what was happening up country, and glad to see that they're working so hard to actively get that completely addressed. Did you get any update this morning on the wildfires?
It is 93% contained.
Okay, good. Okay, yesterday I heard it was over 80, so that's fantastic. Okay, well, glad to know that's on the right move. This morning, Gary is going to try and connect with one of our guests. We're not sure if she's just running a little bit late, but he's going to try and reach out to her, and I'll introduce her as soon as we know she's available. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what the Maui Chamber of Commerce was doing last week up in Washington, D.C. We have an annual event called Hawaii on the Hill, and that's an event that we have been doing for a decade now. We've been involved since the beginning, and it was the brainchild of Senator Mazie Hirono. It kind of started from other states doing a taste of, like Taste of Vermont, and it's easy for other states to go to D.C. because they don't have all the shipping costs and things that we have to travel across the water to get there. But we had representation from all of the neighbor islands this year. Big Island came in and brought many different products like we do. And what we do is, for that particular event, is we bring in products from our small manufacturers that participate in the Maui Maui County Festival, who we buy their products wholesale, and we take them up and we represent their products. And to about 2,000 congressional leaders and staffers and their team. It is by invitation only at the Taste event. It is a highly coveted event where as leaders come in, they are immediately, everybody who is invited is greeted with a beautiful orchid lei. And then they go through the event. They've got Mai Tais, and Maui Gold Pineapple was there with us. And so that event is basically from 4 to 7 p.m., and it's a 3-hour event, and it's crazy. And people are so excited to see products from Hawaii, to taste the different things that we bring up from our local manufacturing companies. So we had high spice. We served high spices, one of their medium sauces on chips. We had one of the incubation companies from UHMC who gave us a salted fudge, which was a huge hit. We had ube chocolate. Everybody, ube is so popular that everybody was loving ube chocolate. We also had another amazing product that, if you haven't tried it, you really should try it because it's super unique. It's called Coconut Cowgirls Coconut Bacon. And Mazie Hirono loved it. She was telling everybody about it, and people were coming in drones going, "Where's the coconut bacon?" And out of all those thousands of people that came, they would say, "Really? Does it really taste like bacon?" And I would say, yes, it really does taste like bacon, but it's made out of coconut, and it's healthy for you, and it's vegan and gluten-free. And and only 2 people out of all of the people I talked to, because we actually promote the products, we tell everybody about these products as well. Only 2 people who said I'm a diehard bacon fan, and I told everybody I'm not here to convert you, but I want you to tell me if it tastes like bacon, if you could use this like bacon. And only 2 said no, they're sticking to bacon. And I said, totally fine. I appreciate your honesty. I want to know if you feel. I want people to give me the feedback, so if they feel I'm well representing it. Everybody else said, oh, my goodness, it tastes like bacon. And we had so many actually vegan people and people who were doing gluten-free. They were thrilled. Some people said, I haven't had bacon in over 20 years. And they were like, this solves my problem. And everything that we brought up, we also had, and you're going to hear later from Vitalitea, we brought up their cold brew kombucha. We had from Wai'ehu, we had mamaki tea. We had so many great things there, and people just really relished everything that we had to share. So it was a great event. But on top of that, and that's sort of the reason this whole Hawaii on the Hill started, but then, we realized that it would be great to broaden it out and include different policy summit, have a big summit on policy, and then have panelists come in. So we had great speakers on our first day. It started on Monday morning. So the first briefing was a briefing with Senator Mazie Hirono. She has what she calls a fireside chat. There is no fireplace, but it was just a roundtable area where you sit around and listen to Mazie and Sherry Minora of the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii asked questions. And it's just an informal chat, and some of it's personal questions to learn more about her. Most of it was political questions, and she gave us a good overview of what's happening in Washington and the impacts. And so that was really good, and we had a chance to ask a lot of questions. But we're in a tough environment, especially the small business community. We're watching what's happening on so many different arenas for many businesses. Of course, the tariffs is number one. Shipping, unfortunately, a lot of our congressional leaders are concerned about some of the shipping things. The Jones Act is one of them that, they feel for the defense strategy that's a challenge. But, we've long been saying we would like to exempt Hawaii and Alaska from the Jones Act. One of the other things that we discussed is Young Brothers. We all know Young Brothers have a shipping increase that's proposed, and it's before the Public Utilities Commission. And we've been encouraging businesses to ring in on this, and we have concerns. And we've said, this is not a time that businesses can take any more hits. And also we question how they're looking at some of the valuations for the proposed increase. And they used to come around to the chamber, and we could do a briefing and invite members to come and have dialogue, but that hasn't happened with this one. So right now we're opposing that increase, but it is going to be before the PUC, and the PUC will have to decide. But, they did meet with Senator Hirono and said, they're losing millions of dollars. So we're wanting to learn more about that and explore that, but we are currently proposing that. So that's one of the things that came up. But the other thing that came up is that she is working with, different legislators there, and of course the big one that she has long worked with is Senator Chuck Schumer, and she sits on the Small Business Committee. And one of the things that they're trying to do is exempt small businesses from the impact of the tariffs. Now, it hasn't gotten much traction yet, and she shared this is, a lot of small businesses are talking about big hits. We're still seeing small businesses close, and she's talking about statewide, just the difficulty coming out of COVID with COVID loans. And, of course, on Maui, we have COVID loans, we have SBA EIDL loans, we have many people who are hurting with our down, our lower visitor numbers. In many cases, we're seeing great impacts on visitor-related businesses, restaurant, retail, agriculture, weddings and events, activities, of course. And it just goes on. And every day I'm talking to people about what's going on there. And, of course, the Canadian market is really important to Maui. They've been a strong market for us, and there was a lot of talk about that. And, the tariffs was one thing that there was a lot of talk about, but we learned that a lot of the conversations with the Canadians are just the insult of trying to say we're going to make Canada the 51st state. So there is a number of fronts on which, we have offended Canada. And so and people are trying to follow their national policy, and many are still trying to come too. And of course, we want them to come. We want them to know that we have great aloha for them. But it's one of these things that under this administration, it's one of the things that we're going to need to look at and really address. But in addition to the fireside chat, we also had a workforce insights for Hawaii businesses and looking at, really strengthening Hawaii's workforce to drive economic diversification, and talked about different programs that are, being proposed. And of course, there's a state plan that's underway, and they're looking to create, some North Stars and direction and a united plan. So that's something that's being worked on, and that was discussed. And how to prepare Hawaii's workforce for emerging technologies, looking at AI and digital jobs, and the things that can be done from Hawaii that can be higher paying jobs. And then there was another panel called The State of Tech, how the latest tech revolution is impacting your business in Hawaii. And so Governor Josh Green was there, and he spoke. We had Daniel Craig, who's the Chief Executive Officer from Tidal Basin Group. We also had Dave Herco from the Defense Sector Chief Technology Officer at Peraton. We had Patrick Sullivan. I had a great conversation with him afterward. He's been doing business in Hawaii for quite some time. He's the founder and CEO of Oceanit, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. So we talked about other things that we could do to really attract tech, because in my former career at Maui Economic Development Board, I was very involved back in the late 80s, early 90s on promoting high-tech Hawaii, high-tech Maui. And, of course, back then we had the supercomputer brought to Maui, which was a crown jewel that Senator Inouye gave us, and had a lot of possibilities for tech development. But our state just sort of never kept up with the tech wave of investment that many other states have done to really attract high-tech industries. So we talked about some of those things, and then we had the responsible AI lead from Amazon Web Services, Dia Nguyen, and she was there and talking about things that Amazon's looking at and the work that she does. And part of that work is also in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So she does a lot of DEI work and talked about that a little bit as well. And then the following day, we were at the Capitol. Well, actually, we were at the Senate building. We were at the Hart Senate building. And there we had a policy summit. So that was on June 10th, and Senator Hirono was there. Senate President Ron Kochi was there. The other neighbor island mayors were there from Kauai. Derek was there, and from Big Island. Unfortunately, Mayor Bisson was unable to make it this year, but he had representatives there, and it was great to see his team there. And they were tremendous help at different events for us. But Senator Mazie Hirono was there, and Governor Green was there as well. But the featured speakers were Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. She is the ranking member on the Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. Of course, they're very worried about the SNAPS program, and the SNAPS program has great impact for residents in Hawaii who are in need. And so usually that's in the Farm Bill, and there's other funding. So those are things that are, on the chopping block with the big, beautiful bill. So we talked a little bit about that. We also talked about with Dilawar Syed, who used to work with, and I worked with him when he was under the former, under President Biden, Isabel Guzman, who was the head of the SBA, and we had a special program to try and get stuck applications through. So he no longer works for the SBA, but works in Texas and is a part of a think tank. And he was talking to us about the importance of, as was Mazie, the importance of really telling the stories. So you will be seeing us really reach out to our members, reach out to businesses. If you're listening to this today, please email us at office@mauichamber.com and tell the stories about how you've been impacted by the wildfires. Tell the story about how the tariffs are going to impact you, how our lower visitor counts or, the loss of some of our Canadian visitors are impacting your business. Because some of the cuts in the way they're reforming things are coming down in very harsh ways. Many people in different departments, not just SBA, but SBA has been impacted. People have taken, the some people are calling it they've been doged, but they took the first offer or they took the second offer, feeling like they could lose their jobs. And we have many key positions within the SBA, which we and others across the nation desperately need as we're still recovering from disasters. And while I was, still out of state, again, we had another fire. We really need those kinds of help to help businesses recover, to get the money that's available through the federal government after disasters. So, he really encouraged some storytelling. We met with U.S. Senator Ed Markey, who is the ranking member on the Committee of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and he also talked about that bill. He's very supportive of the bill to try and exempt small businesses, again, from the tariffs, and talked about the hardships small businesses face and well understood Hawaii's issues. And again, all of these senators that I'm mentioning, they're all friends and are colleagues of and friends with Senator Hirono. They have the greatest respect for Senator Hirono, and they're very well aligned. We also had U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, and she is on the Committee of Indian Affairs, but of course they also look at, basically Native rights, and so she talked about that and the alliances with Hawaii. And in the past, we didn't talk about it this time, but in the past, again, Alaska also said, if they were exempt from the Jones Act, that would greatly help Alaska because they have the issues that we experience as well. So we talked a lot about similarities between Alaska and Hawaii, which was wonderful. So again, our congressional team is really working on building bridges. We had Senator Tom Tillis, who is he's from North Carolina, and senator from North Carolina, and talked about the Committee on the Judiciary and what's happening in the legal system and how many lawsuits have been filed against the administration and just challenges with, all of the things that we watch on the news every day. And of course, immigration is a big part of that. And then we had Governor Martin O'Malley. He's from Maryland, and he's a former commissioner with the Social Security Administration. And he came to talk about the challenges with Social Security and some of the things that are being reviewed and looked at. And then our panel ended with Senator Chuck Schumer, and so from New York. And for those who know, he and Maisie are great friends, and she introduced him to Sam Musabe, and he loves Hawaii. And he again talked about the importance of this bill trying to exempt small businesses from the tariffs. And of course, there's a lot of concerns. I was sitting in the audience with a lot of business people, and, there people were saying, well, I don't know how we're going to do that. And it's a very complicated system. But it was a really important session to have because there is so much going on in Washington, and sometimes we feel like, how are we going to affect all that's going on there? And we watch the news every day, and it just seems like every day it's a new announcement, and every new announcement's a big announcement, and it takes a lot of effort. And then we hear about the legal challenges and the legal battles, and we understand those things take a long time. But what I want to say is we have a congressional team who's fighting hard, and they need our help. And the way that we can help is they need more people standing up. And what we want to do is share stories. We're really going to ask our different members to reach out and also share stories that, we at the Chamber are great at telling stories that are unique to sectors, and we talk to people every day. And we, have asked people, and people are afraid to honestly stand up because they see people who are standing up getting attacked. And we understand that a lot of our personal data is in the hands of people that it's never been in the hands of before. So, there's a lot of concern, and we certainly understand that. But through the Chamber, and we've done this for many issues, whether it's when people were concerned about permitting and they didn't want to raise issues, or, Department of Liquor, permits and event permits and just liquor permits in general. And people had concerns, but they didn't feel like they wanted to stand up. Often we have people who will share with us anonymously who they are, so we can talk about their industry and they can share their stories without being specifically named. And so if that's something that you feel that you'd like to do, then you can send that to us. And you can send it to us at office@mauichamber.com and say, just put in the headline, in the subject line, story for leaders. And it could, some of these stories apply to the county. Some of the stories might apply to the state, our state government with the governor and the legislature. And some of the stories might be for the national level. And some of the stories might be for all three. So we're here to help. And if you're willing to put your name and your company affiliated with that, that's fantastic. But if you don't feel like that's something that you'd like to do, we can do it under the chamber umbrella. And we can say, we had X number of stories for this industry. We are putting it under the chamber umbrella because people have concerns they could be targeted. That's real. And so, but here are the things that legislators need to know about Maui businesses, about these industries, about impacts that are unique to our island state or our island county or our island community. And so we are going to be very focused on that because we're very focused on looking at how we can improve this economy and how we can keep our small businesses alive and how we can keep families from having to move to the mainland for, homes that they can afford. Housing and our economy are our top two priorities, and they go hand in hand. We all want to diversify our economy, but we have to have housing to diversify our economy. We have to have housing for our children to return home from, college or work abroad, to come back home when they want to come back home. But where are they going to be able to live? And when we're competing against other states where the cost of living is much lower, it's tough. And I've traveled many other states, and I have stories that I can share with the house that my daughter bought in Kansas City. That was a 4-bedroom house for $170K. We've got to find ways to do better so that, our future generations can know that they can have a wonderful life, that we can have a diversified economy, that they can have choices on jobs and higher paying jobs. And just to understand, so many of the nuances that are challenging, that they can be a part of the solution as well, and they can be a part of it now. And, of course, you are hearing more people speak out on housing, and it's critically important that we do. But we also have to do housing in a way that's also responsible and balanced in the sense that we understand all of the impacts for the choices that we're making. So that's really critically important. And, again, we're going to need help on the congressional level. And shipping is going to continue to be a huge issue because we're going to need a lot of materials to rebuild Maui and to build the housing that we need. Shipping is a critical issue for us. And also, it's a critical issue for people doing business, all of our small businesses who are bringing products in to sell in their grocery stores, retail stores, for our local manufacturers. We work with not just the manufacturers each year through the Made in Maui County Festival, but over the years we have several hundred manufacturers that we work with. And, even if they're making their jams and jellies, we don't manufacture jars here. So all the jars have to be imported. And, so we're looking at ways where we can come together and say, this is a time where we have to look at things uniquely, and we're going to have to be prepared and work with government and tell the stories. All right. We are so thrilled to have with us today, we have Will joining us. Will Davis is founder and owner of Vitalitea Hawaii, makers of locally produced kombucha and nitro cold brew coffee, the coffee I was telling you about that was a huge hit at Hawaii on the Hill. Vitalitea began as a passion project in 2015 and has since expanded into distribution throughout all Hawaiian Islands, packaged in infinitely recyclable 12-ounce cans sourced from Ball Corp on Oahu. Vitalitea uses local and organic ingredients through partnerships with local Hawaii farms and is currently available at over 500 locations throughout the islands. Will and his wife, Valerie, are also commercial airline pilots. Oh my gosh, that's something new I don't think I knew. And have a son who's 4 years old and a daughter who is turning 2 this month. What a wonderful time in your life. Aloha, Will. How are you this morning?
Great. Aloha, Pam. Good morning. How are you?
I am excellent. We had such a great time with your product at Hawaii on the Hill.
That's great. I was going to ask you about that. Welcome back.
Thank you. Also, I've got to tell you a funny story. Will also sent up the cold brew, the nitro cold brew, to share with people. And again, with 2,000 people in the room, I was telling the story, Will, before you came on about being at Hawaii on the Hill. With 2,000 people coming in, the room is warm, and so the cold brew was delicious, and people absolutely loved it. But Will also sent up some pineapple and strawberry kombucha for Amber and I to drink, or for our team to share, for the people who are working at the booth to help us. But the caterers didn't realize it was for us with everything shipped to the kitchen, so they put it out. So we also will rep the strawberry and pineapple kombucha as well.
All right, that wasn't by design. We just thought, hey, we've got a little void in this box. Let's get some extra stuff out for them.
Oh, you guys were so sweet, and all of a sudden we had to rearrange the whole table, going, oh wait, we have more product. Wait, and Amber said, oh no, that was supposed to just be a couple, some for us. But anyway, we loved it. We did get to have a little bit as well, but people really enjoyed that as well. So I mean, you folks are constantly moving forward every time we talk, and it's been a while since we last spoke. But you have been expanding your distribution. Tell us what Vitalitea has been up to since we last had you on the show.
Yeah, since we last talked, I think the last time we talked was right before we were doing some sampling at Costco, project we've been working on for quite a few, probably 4 years now.
Yes.
And since then, we've now expanded into all the Costcos right now with our 6-packs, both the Restore Kombucha and our Nitro Cold Brew Coffee Original Hoppa. So we've got that now placed at all the Costcos across the state. That was a big project for us. And much needed. We've been, obviously, you touched on it earlier. Everybody's kind of just motoring along and hanging on with the downturn in tourism and results of the wildfires still, kind of getting us all. And we've kind of really looked, everybody, I think, has just kind of looked for that next avenue. Like, what can we do to keep going here and to get in the trajectory, or at least close to what we were trying to do, a few years ago. And so finally this Costco thing coming together has been a big deal for us. We've been able to bring on some new people. My gosh, we've got some great talent that we've just brought in, some super professionals from the industry. I brought in a guy that's he's just so passionate, and he comes from working in some of the larger well-known coffee, cold brew coffee companies, and he's running our coffee program now, and that's all he does. He runs that coffee program. I mean, it's not all he does in our business. It's small. Everybody wears a lot of hats, but he's really that's his focus, which is great. We finally have somebody dedicated to that project, and he runs our coffee. We've brought in more equipment. We just keep bringing in more equipment. I'm scrambling to source some more, some really cool stuff for us to kind of automate a few of the things, and it's been exciting. It's tough because it's take it while you can, right? So we've really organically grown, but we've added some really neat stuff, and it's exciting because it's just always about quality control for us, and how do we make the next jump without getting too far ahead of ourselves. So that's kind of our main focus right now, and also we're pushing a little more in the coffee direction. We've been working ever since releasing a couple of different flavored versions and the success of those. We're kind of working in that direction, and we've got a collaboration coming up with a well-known retailer. We just can't talk about it right now. I thought we'd be at a point where we'd have a little more information to release on it right now, but we're developing a flavor for them, and that's going to come out soon. But it's exciting because we're loving to push more in that direction, although everything's going up on us, our supplies. Everything that we use and consume and put in our products is continuing to increase, and it's so sensitive on the retail side to make any kind of an adjustment to compensate for that. So it's a delicate balance.
It is. And, we talked about with the tariffs while we were in Washington, D.C., as this keeps changing every other week, it seems. But anyway, as we were talking about this, again, businesses work on a cycle that's like 6 months out for the costing. And things are just so in a state of flux, it's hard to know where to be. And many people are saying, when the tariffs hit us, we're locked into contracts. We can't just automatically change our pricing with our retailers. We have to give them a 6-month heads up. And so there's a lot of impact
and they're all
to many of our businesses.
Yeah, and every one of them's different. No, sorry, every one of them's different too. So if you are trying to change that retail price, there's different lead times for each one of your retailers, and it is tricky, and it's not. And then you're so nervous about what they're going to do. They may not exactly translate that increase, to the exact number that you did on their end. It may actually increase it even more. And sometimes we've seen some of our retailers kind of walk away from the initial margins already without us raising our prices. So we're so sensitive to what that end, what it's going to look like on the shelf next to any of our competitors. And so it's tricky. Everything's tricky.
Yeah. No, it's really important to understand those nuances and that's what we're trying to say to legislators is you're making these sweeping statements, but here are the nuances that people have to deal with. And that is another big concern that you just pointed out is then what happens to your pricing compared to your competitors on the shelf? And what does that mean for your market? Are people going to, if the retailers also inflate it beyond what had to be passed on, then what happens to your margins and your market?
Yeah, I like what you touched on too with the small business, kind of segregating that a little bit. When you look at, if your competitor is another small business like yourself, then they're facing probably the same challenges, and they may have set themselves up earlier for something better or not. That may give them some advantage, but it's a small scale, right? When you have a situation where if you had that, that buying power of a very large corporation, very large company, you are way less affected by some of these changes or challenges than a small business. So you're not on that even playing field. And it could almost, I don't want to say, but it could almost create almost a predatory situation where you have a very large company that's able to absorb some of this stuff. And in a very challenging situation, the small companies are not able to kind of meet that challenge on an even playing field.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a deep concern that we have. And again, and they also, have longer planning when, they just buy bigger quantities and bring those prices down. So yeah. It's a huge issue. It's and deeply concerning, again, just because on size and scale. We have a lot of small businesses compared to other states. It's a high percentage of our state, and on top of that, we are very different from other states. We in Alaska, are separated by bodies of water, and our shipping is very different and comes at a much higher cost. So we're already disadvantaged on top of that, and to our state legislators, we've been advocating since day one that I walked into the chamber that also we have to look at our regulatory environment in Hawaii and the high cost of our regulatory environment here, because we're very different from other continental states in that regard and have higher small business burdens than many other states have. So which often causes people when they grow to move out of state because they can get better tax incentives. Yeah. And lower regulatory burdens in other states. So, boy, I know. Well, we are here for you, and we've kind of got the story on recording as well. So this is a great story to share because I think it's really important to to be on the forefront of this and to be saying to congressional leaders, not just our congressional leaders, but, in Congress, please hear us. We are very different, and we are dealing with significant issues. I know we talked about this and I don't want to go too long because there's so many wonderful things I want to talk about, but can you briefly share, because you mentioned that, you worked for 4 years on getting ready for Costco, and there's a lot of things. Can you just kind of briefly mention some of the unique things that Costco requires to have their products sold in that store? So if anybody wants to consider it, to know that, Costco will walk them through this, of course, but to just know kind of ahead of time some of the things that have to be done, like doing audits of the products and things to make sure that it's of the, that the nutritional information is correct and, that it meets the standards they uphold.
Yeah, they're a real good model for food safety because their food safety program is extremely intricate and it's a very detailed audit process. And we were fortunate when we started working on this, over 4 years ago. There was we were able through Innovate Hawaii to have a food safety consultant work with us for a little while to get our stuff set up, but it's not just facility, it's all of your programs behind the scenes, your supply chain programs, your recall programs, and just give you a quick example. We talked about it before, but when the auditor comes in, it's unannounced. It's once a year. The first one's announced because they need to give you a little bit of grace to figure it all out. But after that, it's unannounced. They come in, they show up. The first thing they do when they walk in the door is they pick something up and they, one of your products, and they look at it and maybe they grab the kombucha and they say, we need to know where all the ginger that got into this kombucha is, so basically every product, everything has to be figured out within 2 hours. We need to know where all this went. Is it still in-house? Is it distributed out? Where did it go? And fortunately now we have software that really helps us with that. But, that's the first thing they do. And then they start, about an 8 or 10 hour process of walking through your facility, going through your paperwork, going through your all of your programs and your records and your sign-offs and they're going to find stuff that's their job. And so they give you corrective actions, and you have this list of corrective actions. And for example, I had to at one point pour a 1 foot perimeter of cement around our building because you can't have any weeds or anything touching the building, as a result of it, and it's really, but it's great. Even though we didn't know if we were going to get our stuff in Costco or not, we kept doing the audit because we said, this is so great for our business. It's puts you at that next level. It's called a, GMP audit, and it's good manufacturing practices. And it just gets you to understand, it just sets you up for success. So that's the main part of it. Now they've added a code of conduct audit, which, we've got that coming up, and I think it has a little bit more to do with migrant workers, but it's required now by all Costco suppliers. It's another audit, so we've got 2 yearly audits now that we're going to have to conduct with them. But so it's a bit of a process.
It's quite a process, but as you point out, it really sets you up for long-term success. And even companies, I appreciate you mentioning that, because some of our manufacturers are small and they're not going to be ready for that right now. But we always want everybody thinking forward on where they could be. And a lot of people do look at Costco as sort of a great avenue for the future. And so to know kind of what they need to start thinking about helps to get them reaching out, finding out the details, understanding more, and looking at their operations and how would they step up to that. So I appreciate that. I love that you've got the phenomenal 6-pack boxes in Costco. They look beautiful. Tell us how that's going.
Thank you. It's pretty new to us. So far, the velocity has been pretty good. We've just only in the last few weeks gotten it out to the rest of the stores. So we're and we've backfilled that. There's, I know that Costco's got their 4th of July sale coming up, and we'll be part of that. So we've sent out additional product for that one. It's going well. The feedback is amazing. We're getting feedback from I've got friends on outer islands texting me and sending me pictures, and we're seeing a lot of feedback. It's helpful for some of the food trucks that buy most of their supplies from Costco, and were too small to meet order minimums for our distributors. Now they're able to go down and buy 6-packs to resell on the food truck, and people are just, I think the ability to buy it kind of in a bulk sense like that, has been really helpful for everybody. Like you said, we've worked on those boxes, the artwork, the back and forth behind the scenes edits that we've done to come up with those. No, I don't like this. Move the coffee beans down a little bit. Well, we've done that for a few years, and we finally settled on this. And I think they look really good. I think they're appealing. I'm very proud of everybody that's worked on them, and I think they came out really well.
I think they're fantastic. I think you folks did an excellent job, and I know sometimes when I'm helping people with design and marketing too, I always say, just get a great focus group. Just put some things together and get a great focus group and get some other people's insight and hear what their thinking is. And you can still your business, you get to decide, but you guys have done an awesome job, and I love that. Though again, that's another great idea for folks who are looking to sell products, and maybe some of the smaller restaurants or food trucks can't accommodate the minimums for distributors. But if you get into Costco, that's maybe another avenue where they can buy, when they're buying all their other supplies, they can pick up your product there too. So I love that idea. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
And again, the products are just tremendous. But I had this thought that, folks, get into the 4th of July special. Get your products from Vitalitea this 4th of July and show your pride. Take a picture of you drinking it on the 4th of July and showcase your celebration on your Facebook page. But we'd love to see the Vitalitea cans in your celebration. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. We love to be part of that. We were asked by Costco to be part of that, and I think it's just a great opportunity to introduce more people, to our products, especially Outer Island.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love is you have this is a family-owned business for you. So, over the years, you've been doing this both in better tourism times, and of course, things have changed after the wildfires and, with COVID and the wildfires. And so we've seen things change in businesses, again, with the tariffs and other things, but also just the tourism landscape. How has all of this affected your company?
It's, in obviously the negative parts are a challenge, but, I think that they've made us a lot stronger because you're constantly having to change something and you're learning from it. And I think it's just overall, we try to look at the bigger picture and just keep moving forward with the same mission, without changing that. And it just presents itself at some point. And I think overall, the challenge is definitely, we take a lot of but we take a lot of strength in that, just feeling that, hey, this is a big challenge. And so to meet the challenge is probably, keeping us ahead, sometimes of competitors, or keeping us in a good place just by meeting these big challenges. It's all you could do, right, is try to take strength from that and try to stay as positive as possible. And man, the COVID example, though, we had so many local fans, I guess, or following, that when we had to pull back quite a bit for everything shutting down, obviously all our retail partners were slowing down or shutting down. We started doing home deliveries, and we kept going because of that. We thought we were going to have to be laid everybody off, and then we brought them all back right away. We said, no, we can keep you working. And so I think that's been important for me. For me, it's been, we didn't really try to focus on pushing this out, as far as we can get it. It's been more community-based and just trying to keep it close. And that helps you with the ebbs and flows, right? Tourism can peak and valley a little bit, but we've got that core group of people that we're really serving, and I think that's kept us just with the baseline, with the core, to just keep moving forward, and it's been exciting, especially when new things come up and we get an idea or an ability to add a new flavor, and it's a little tough on the family because they've got to endure not only both my wife and I having a full-time job, but also this, and so it was a bit of a juggling
job
act.
With the children and a full-time job. But what an amazing family and team you have that makes this all possible, and to look for ways, and everybody's doing that right now. Honestly, I'm talking to so many people who are really looking for ways to keep their team together. And we hear these stories. And I remember when we had the Great Recession, and you heard all these stories, and they were big corporations and the way they treated people. But with the chamber members I work with and the businesses I work with, their team is their family. They're part of their family. Yeah. And I don't mean, biologically related, but I mean they're family. We care for our teammates, and we don't want to see anybody hurt by downturns, and yet to keep them and keep the jobs, we need to make sure the business survives. And everybody's looking for ways to do that right now. We've got so many people, again, continuing to look at pivoting right now, and just in a state of flux on, what the impact of the tariffs are going to be. So I love that you found, by just delivering and keeping it local, that you were able to keep your employees. That's tremendous. And yet continuing to grow.
Yeah, I obviously feel very fortunate, that we've but we can't rest. We've got to come up with some new stuff all the time. We've got to come up with, where we're doing these growth spurts. We're putting in some more infrastructure to be able to do other things and different things in the future, and that's where my brain always, is centered on, is that we're happy and fortunate to have these things come up, but we've definitely got to keep looking to the future and what's next, what's new, what else could we do with our equipment, and so that's been always the what leads my thoughts.
Yeah. Got to constantly innovate and look for opportunities. Absolutely, and it's great that you have that that you've got that mindset, which is awesome, and it's a mindset people can grow. Often, when we work with very small startups, they're focused on one product, but as they grow it, we keep talking to them. What else could you do with this? How else could you build? How else can you diversify? And you folks have done a tremendous job. And speaking of that, tell us what you mentioned, some of the new coffee flavors that are coming out. Tell us what we should be having on our radar.
Well, the last time we talked, we kind of let the cat out of the bag about salted caramel, which was something we had done for an event, and we kind of pushed it out fast for an event, and I wasn't extremely overwhelmingly excited about it. It was the aroma with it, everything was great, but now we've dialed that in, and we're in love with that flavor. We've got that out, and we're going to have some surprise ones coming out.
Oh, awesome. Well, Will, I'm sorry it goes so quick, but tell everybody very quickly how they can find you.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're in, like you said, over 500 retailers, pretty much any store island-wide, and now it's buy it in bulk and Costco.
Awesome. Well, thanks, and everybody remember, 4th of July, they're going to be part of the special. Thank you so much, Will, for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today for Business Matters. But to everybody who tuned in, we appreciate you joining us. Please join us again